Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting for the city of San Juan at 6 p.m. May we rise for invocation. Mr. Arjona, can you lead us, sir?
Dear Lord, thank you for your blessings. Guide us during our discussions. Give us wisdom so that we can make adequate decisions. Bless this meeting today. Bless those that are less fortunate. Thank you for being our source of guidance. And that's all we do in your name. Amen.
Flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. May be seated. At this time, we have no public comments. So, Mr. Arjona, go ahead, sir.
Sure. Mayor, Commissioners, good evening, staff, um, community members, elected officials, welcome. The first item on the presentation, Mayor, Commission, we have presentations on recognizing the Boys and Girls Club San Juan unit, participation in the September neighborhood cleanup event. We have a few good-looking individuals here that will be presented with some certificates, Mr. Garza, for their participation on that neighborhood cleanup that they helped us out a couple of weekends ago.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners.
Good evening,
Uh,
sir.
We're here to recognize kids that participated in our September neighborhood cleanup event. They did an outstanding job. They braved the elements out there, and they got so excited. They all asked me the same question: when is the next event? So we'll be working on that pretty soon. I'd like to introduce Ana Vasquez, the unit director for the Boys and Girls Club, and she's gonna announce the names of kids that participated in the event.
So when I call out your names, go ahead and stand, and I'll keep you the certificate. Hugo Enriquez.
Well, congratulations and thank you guys for your service. It really means to this uh, city of San Juan. Thank you for your hard work and your dedication. Okay? So I guess right now, we'll go down there and take a picture.
The next item, Mayor, is a presentation on establishing the San Juan Police Athletic League. With us tonight, we have Mr. Patrick Willingham, Mr. Red Garza, and Chief Gonzalez, who are spearheading this organization, Mayor. Patrick.
Good evening, Mayor, Commission.
Good evening, sir.
We're here, we're just going to make a brief presentation on something Chief Gonzalez spoke about, I think a couple meetings ago, about looking into a police athletic league. So we've begun the process on that, and we're just going to share briefly some little bit of background on the police athletic league and where we're at this point, what needs to be, and what our immediate vision for the police athletic league will be moving forward. Basically, the Police Athletic League was established as far back as 1914, and it was established in a way that the police department and the community start getting more engaged, offering direct services to the youth of the community. Our vision here is to provide, community services for the citizens of San Juan by using our athletic activities as well as educational programs to improve the quality of life here in the community, for our youth. Right now, there's three basic areas that we're concentrating on that we'll be trying to get done here in the next few weeks. These three things are essential to getting started, to starting a chapter here in the city. Those three are a community assessment, and I've been working with Chief Gonzalez along with the school district on what are the needs in our community. What the community assessment does is it tells us, are the problems here in our community gang related? Is it dropout? Is it poverty? What is it, and where do we need to focus on once we get started? The next step will be to establish articles of incorporation, 501c3. And then lastly, would be to get our bylaws in order and to appoint a board of directors for the league itself. Being that it's a nonprofit, it will need to have a board, and that will make decisions on the funding, the nonprofit status, and of course, we'll have to keep good records throughout the year of money's coming in, money's coming out. We want to start small. We don't want to start too big. There will be a presence throughout the year in all our activities with the San Juan Police Department, getting involved, showing a little bit more presence in all our activities, all our sport leagues going on. But right now, what we're looking at is boxing, wrestling, and then our summer sports like track and field and tennis. And that could change. We can make it smaller. We can add as we go on. If you go on the PAL website, there is a whole list of activities throughout the nation that fall under the Police Athletic League, from educational programs to trainings to the arts to recreation activities to all kinds of sports. I mean, pretty much if a city has it, it falls under PAL, or it could potentially fall under PAL. However, we want to start small, stuff that we can control, and then from there decide how much we want to grow or if we want to stay right where it is that we start. I'm going to call Chief up here because one of the programs that he would like to spearhead right off the bat is called GREAT, and I'll let Chief expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Commission. Yes, I think this is a great concept that that we can implement here in the city of San Juan. I think that back in '09, when we started our gang scope unit, we were able to reduce the amount of gang activity in this area. I think this is part of that initiative, but more focusing on the youth, middle school kids. We want to increase the awareness of the negative side of joining a gang and increase the positive side of having a good communication and good relationship with police officers. So our main goal is through the GREAT program, which is the Gang Resistance and Education program, allows us to take the program to the schools. Obviously, with the new chief of police in the PSJ, also partnering up with them, we're able to go out there and present this 13 lesson plan presentation that we can do in the middle schools. But the most important thing is focusing on our youth, making sure that we keep them off the streets. I know that we also talked about later on increasing into an after-school program as well, something that's much needed as well. We've been seeing an increase of youth activity at night, especially late at night in the areas, and we're increasing our patrols in that area as well. We increase our minimum staffing as well to make sure that we're able to address those issues there. We've done a great job. Our staff has done a great job in minimizing the amount of gang activity in this area. Obviously, but we want to stay that. Now we want to take it a step further and engage the students to make sure that they're part of the police department and they see the police department as partners, not as individuals that they should be afraid of, and individuals that they need to be working with. So I think it's a great program, and collaborating with Patrick here and Mr. Garza here, they have some experience more than we do, but I think that we will start a good program, and starting small is a concept. Eventually, we're increasing. But I think that the numbers that we talked about, the numbers of participation that they're having here, Parks and Recreation have increased throughout the years. And I think that's right now is the time for us to also to partner up with them and engage, in their activities, sports activities, to make sure that our youth don't take the wrong path. So we have a young force. We have hired a lot of young officers between the age of 23 to 27 years old. So the majority of them are there in that area. So I think that they're showing a lot of interest in partnering up with the community, especially with sports activities. So I think it's something that's positive for the city. And also, we want to set the example for the rest of the cities as well, making sure that we continue with our enforcement, try to make sure our kids don't join gangs. Have Mr. Garcia a few words.
And then the other part that we don't do nearly as much as we feel we can do is some events for children with special needs, and Mr. Garas is going to expand on that area for us.
As a past PAL director, the involvement of our police department, police officers, along with police chief, created a positive experience to the kids in our community. Created excitement. So these kids would go to practice and the police officers show up in the uniforms and, is that our coach? It just created a different atmosphere. And commissioners, you all coached in the PAL League. You knew that excitement that created it. And also the special component that we're gonna add is also our special needs kids, get them involved. We're already planning some events, starting off probably in December, do a little bit of fundraising, donations, and do a shop with the cop. Taking the special needs kids out to the local Walmart and having them purchase gifts for themselves and for their families. But it's great organization. Can't say good enough things about it. And we're real proud that the city is taking the lead and bringing the PAL chapter to the city of San Juan.
So that's basically where we're at this point, where we've been brainstorming right now, going back to getting started in San Juan. The community assessment is in the works, the articles of incorporation, and of course, we do have a set of bylaws that we're looking at right now. I've been working on it and making some minor changes. Probably need about a few weeks before we bring those items back to you to review, but that's where we want to start, and we really want to develop that relationship between our law enforcement and the community. Let the kids know, hey, these guys are with you, they're not against you. Also identifying a lot of those kids who just need a second chance, and these programs will allow that. The sports that we identified are sports that you don't have to be 6'5" and weigh 225 to be successful. Boxing, wrestling, track and field, tennis, anybody can really join and be successful at it. So that's where we want to start. And if we have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Our chief or Mr. Garza as well.
What's the projected time that you think that this program will be, running full throttle?
Our goal is within this next month, by the end of October, to have those 3 items done, completed. To have the community assessment, the articles of incorporation. Now, getting our own 501c3 and getting that registered may take a little bit of time. However, I have spoken with national office. We do have to have it in place, but we can get started with some of these other activities while we're waiting, for the 501c3 to be officially registered with the government and get our number and things like that. But we can get started with some of these other activities, as Mr. Garza explained, the shop with the cop, and we have another special an event for kids with special needs in the spring, and hopefully by summertime, when those other sports take effect, cross our fingers that we'll be good to go with our 501c3. In addition to those events that we have, law enforcement can already start. We can already start getting into the schools and doing presentations and begin an outreach program. All that can take effect, pretty quickly here.
Go ahead, sir.
As far as funding, will be available to that associates with the PAL League, or how does that work?
Yes, there are certain ones that are available. A lot of them are for mentoring programs, outreach programs that law enforcement will be taking place within in the school system. There are some that are available through, for that. Go ahead.
Mayor Pro Tem, also through the asset forfeiture program, we're allowed to participate and assist local youth, specifically this program because it's a police athletic league, so it is funded by the police department, endorsed by the police department, and the asset forfeiture allows us to also allocate funds to this particular program, so we're looking at that already as well.
Like you mentioned, yeah, we were very familiar with when City of FAR started it and stuff like that. But it's tremendous the way it just brought out the community. You're right on that thing. Every time you saw it, I mean, there was police presence everywhere, and it changed the culture. And it wasn't just just one or two games or one certain sport. It was done. It grew, and I think the parents bought into that. All the stakeholders that are involved, whether it be the school district partnering up or what have you, but it was a tremendous effect, and participation grew. And at the end of the day, that's what we're all pushing for. So, good job. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have one last question in reference to, I know you mentioned you want to go small, which is boxing, wrestling, and track and field. Like, in reference to boxing, is there like, I know you guys are gonna have to find a location, right? And I think one of the, what I'm suggesting is that there's a gym right behind, what is it, Baloo?
Blue, the old
Yeah.
blue.
Maybe we can use that as for the wrestling and boxing, and maybe you guys can reach out to the school district and figure out if we can maybe lease it, $1 a year, or, or, I mean, if we get that lucky, ¿verdad? But, I think that's something that you guys may want to reach out to. Okay?
Yes, no, definitely, that'd be a perfect location.
Okay.
And perfect
Go
size.
On your community assessment, who's included in that? What stakeholders? I mean, besides the commission, besides the community, how are we
Well,
gonna get
the
some feedback
community
on that?
assessment, what it is it can be done. I specifically asked that question in talking to National PAL. It can be done by our local police department. A lot of times it's done by the school district because what it is it identifies what specifically are the needs. Is it a large dropout rate? Is it a high number of kids getting involved with gangs? Is poverty high in a certain area that they're not participating? So we need to go in there and let them know, hey, we're going to help you, come on out. Those are the factors that are identified throughout the community. And it kind of rates them as far as this is the number one factor that's hurting us. This is number two, this is number three. And then we can start programming how we're going to, get those kids involved. Get those kids, regardless of whatever the situation is, target that group and get them involved.
Any other questions for Mr. Willingham? If not, thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you.
Next item is presentation of proclamation proclaiming October 23rd to the 31st, 2019 as National Red Ribbon Week in San Juan, Texas. Ms. Cavazos.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. This is a proclamation for Red Ribbon Week we do across the PSJ ISD. With PSJ ISD, the City of Alamo presented this on their last meeting. We will be presenting it on this meeting, and then the City of FAR will follow. The proclamation goes as follows. Whereas cities across America have been plagued by the numerous problems associated with alcohol, tobacco, and other drug use, and whereas the hope in winning the war on drugs and the hope lies in the hard work and determination of our communities to create a drug-free environment. And whereas local leaders in government and in the community know that the support of the people in the neighborhoods is the most effective tool they can have in their efforts to reduce the use of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs by Texans. And whereas success will not occur overnight, our patience and continued commitment to drug education and prevention are imperative. And whereas the red ribbon was chosen as a symbol commemorating the work of Enrique Kiki Camarena, a Drug Enforcement Administration agent who was murdered in the line of duty and has come to represent the belief that one person can make a difference. And whereas the Red Ribbon Campaign was established by Congress in 1988 to promote this belief and encourage a drug-free lifestyle and involvement in drug prevention efforts. And whereas October 23rd through the 31st, 2019, has been designated National Red Ribbon Week, calling on all Americans to show their support for a drug-free state by wearing a red ribbon and participating in drug-free activities during that week. Whereas the Red Ribbon Initiative will be observed year-round, representing a unified and visible commitment of our intolerance towards the use of drugs and calling all citizens of PSJ to participate in year-round drug-free activities.
Thank you so much. I guess when you do prepare this proclamation, just go ahead and send it over my way, so that way I can sign off on it.
Yes, we're just waiting on the city of Alma.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Next item, presentation on advanced metering infrastructure, AMI, for the city's water meters from the Schneider's Electric. Mr. Salinas.
Mayor, Commissioners, as you may recall, last year we took on the proposal of doing a performance contract to evaluate our electrical footprint at our water, wastewater plant lift stations, and also our water meter accuracy. And right today we have Schneider Electric to give you all an update on how that project is growing on the water meters. You all have been provided with a presentation in your package, but there's also a presentation. So I'll have Mr. Aaron Garcia come out here and go through the presentation for you all.
Thank you, David. Mayor, City Council, Mr. Arjona, thank you for having us here today, and we thank you for giving us the opportunity in the competitive bid process that was done, as David mentioned, a little over a year ago. And we're here today to give you some insight of what we've been doing for the last several months. As David mentioned, we did an in-depth audit, detailed audit of the facilities. We looked at citywide at buildings. We looked at your wastewater plant. We looked at the water meter infrastructure, and there was a lot of work involved. And I'd like to recognize like Lori, Leroy, David, Eddie from the metering department. There was a lot of work involved in many meetings. Mr. Arjona was in there, and we'd like to just get in some, give you a snapshot of what our findings are. And we'd be happy later to come back and give you, today we're just going to focus on the water meters, and when y'all are ready, would like to come back and visit with you on the what the findings were on at the wastewater plant as well. At this time, I'm going to have let me present our team members. This is Ryan Wonder. He's one of our meter experts on the water meter, so I'm going to have him come up here shortly. And we also have Garrett Sloman. He's one of our project development engineers. And Zia Qureshi, he's our subject matter expert on water. So we're all here today, and if there's any questions in any of the fields, I'm sure we'll have a good answer for you. But at this time, I'd like Ryan to come up and kind of talk about the process, how we determined how we got to the numbers and what was involved in getting there. So Ryan, please come up.
All right, thank you, Aaron. So like Aaron said, this is kind of a culmination of a lot of work and a lot of evaluation, taking a look at the water meter system. And, you know, there's a lot of data associated with those meters. If we go to that next slide there, we can take a look at what's kind of been summarized there with two different manufacturers. It started out as several more manufacturers. Of course, they all have different specifications and different types of features and benefits associated with the products they sell. We've been able to narrow that down to these two, which you see in front of you. And we've identified some areas there in green, which we think pretty clearly identifies the best of the group. So, like Aaron said, you know, there's a lot of work that goes into that analysis. We're talking about thousands of water meters. We evaluated 24 months worth of data for each of those accounts, created a test list, went out and actually pulled those meters, tested them in a bench test to evaluate their performance and their accuracy for metering water. And so that test for each of those meters occurs not just at a single flow, but it's at high, intermediate, and low flow. So there's 3 tests done on each meter. And the goal there is to try to evaluate the meters that are existing in the ground. How are they performing right now? We know that there's a certain amount of water that's going through those meters and it's not being registered because they're older meters or older technology. Those meters are what we call mechanical meters. There's moving parts inside of them. So when we evaluated the different manufacturers with the new meters, we made sure we're looking at the newest technology. These meters have no moving parts in them, and that's a pretty significant technology leap because it's those moving parts that wear over time, and they cause that accuracy to drop off over time. So, you know, we look at these 2 here. These are those new technology meters. These were the 2 finalists, and some pretty significant things here, just highlighted in yellow. I'm not going to go through all these details, but you know, that first line on there with the start flow, that's a minimum flow reading that those meters are able to capture. That's really important. You know, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of value in being able to read those low flows, but there's a lot of water that's lost through these existing meters at low flow. And if you think about a small water flow that might only be 1/8 of a gallon per minute, that's a pretty low flow. 1/8 of a gallon per minute over the course of a year is 60,000 gallons. That's a lot of water. So the traditional metering technology that's in the ground right now, those mechanical meters, 1/8 of a gallon per minute is as low as they will read. When we see water moving slower than that, they don't catch it, even when they're brand new. So these new meters, they represent technology. Not only is there no moving parts, but they're also able to capture those really low flows. We look at that first item, 1/66 of a gallon per minute. That's an incredibly low flow. So what that means is the water that goes through that meter, it's going to capture and revenue all of it. That's the goal. The other items there that we've got highlighted are significant as well. You know, being able to capture and store data at the water meter is very important. In case of something like a power outage, or if there were some type of damage to a radio somewhere, these meters are going to capture and hold that data for 460 days. That's an extremely long time. And then obviously, we want to be mindful of the recurring costs for the city, and that Camsharp product represents the best value there. So a lot of stuff happening there, a lot of different data points to evaluate with all these different manufacturers. They're all top tier manufacturers, been in business for decades, high quality manufacturers, but at the end of the day, this stands out. This is kind of a quick overview of the scope of work. Like we talked about, we really are not focused on the traditional metering technology. Water meter manufacturers still make those meters today, but we're focused on these high accuracy ultrasonic meters. In addition to that, that AMI, that metering infrastructure, that is the meter and the data collecting through radio, and the goal there is to eliminate that human error and to capture that data automatically. And also, you have access to that data. Instead of just capturing that data once a month, this allows you to capture that data and look at that data multiple times per day, or even every hour if you wanted to. So very powerful. Analysis tools and analytics for looking at that data. And then a pretty big deal, that last bullet there underneath scope, the mobile app and the ability for the end users to go and look at their water usage. This is something that typically, you know, your customers are going to have to wait till the end of the month and look at that bill to see what water usage they have. And sometimes it's a big surprise. So this allows them to go in there every day and even multiple times a day to see what their water usage is. So pretty significant benefit there. We talk about benefits. We talked about that first one, the low flow meter accuracy. That's a really big deal. A lot of water is lost at lower flows. We want to eliminate that repetitive human error associated with reading physical meters. This technology is well established and is the modern technology for reading meters. Same thing with gas meters and electric meters. So we're bringing those water meters up into the current technology. Reduced maintenance, talk about that just a little bit. These meters, not only do they have that really significant benefit associated with that high accuracy, but we're talking about meters that have 20-year warranties. So that's very significant when we talk about replacing meters. that lose accuracy over time, like a regular mechanical meter. That's a pretty big deal. And then that last bullet, we talked about that a little bit, with the ability for customers to go in there and look at their data on a daily or even hourly basis. It's a pretty big benefit. And at the bottom of the page, these are the project financials. You can see the project costs, O&M operation and maintenance savings associated with not having to read those meters manually and not having to buy meters yearly. And then you can see the revenue capture, that is the enhanced revenue that the city sees, and the total benefit.
Just want to stress on the project financials that clearly that the revenue loss right now is significant, and with that revenue loss, the city can upgrade the meters. It'll be paid for by the revenue that's being lost. Over the course of 20 years, total benefits 8.1 million. So there's a difference. So there's a net benefit if you subtract the cost of the meters, the 4.7, to the total net benefit. There's close to $3 million in additional net benefit that's going to be will go right back into the city's budget. And I'm sorry.
Back?
Let's see, the 8.1 minus the 4.7, what is it, 3.5 million. So the total benefit, because you got operation and maintenance savings of 1.6 million, and the water loss revenue combined gives you that 8.1. That's over the 20 years. Because under this program, the state allows you to stretch it out up to 20 years under this program, under performance contract, and that's the program that the city had selected us under to come in and look. And it's a creative, more a little different project than you typically have that you normally see, in which the savings are allowed under this program to pay for the project. We have reached out to different lenders, and we have options for the city to be able to, and actually you've been pre-approved already. We've got the options ready to go. So we're hoping that you'll make a decision soon to come back and maybe bring this to an action item to consider moving forward. We do have, as I mentioned, the financing options available. The interest rates right now are really low, and this total benefit and project cost includes the total package as far as interest rate included and project management. Everything's combined in there.
What's the maintenance on these type of meters? I know you guys have what's a 20-year warranty, right?
Yes, these
Now,
meters
now
come.
as far as maintenance on them, is there some sort of maintenance that you have to do on these meters, like every maybe 3-4 years on them, or not at all?
That when we eliminate the moving parts, it's hard to overstate that benefit, because that's how a water meter fails over time. The parts wear out.
Right.
They also accumulate scale, magnesium, calcium carbonate, the water hardness. These meters are not affected by that. So that's pretty big deal.
Gotcha.
And you can, we were actually doing a presentation yesterday to Jemahogue County. They're also in the same position as y'all moving forward with the project. And one of the interesting things that Ryan mentioned that I thought was interesting on the maintenance side was even 15, 17 years later, under these type of meters, if y'all were to send it out to get tested, if it's inaccurate, if it's not accurate, it'll be replaced under the warranty.
Salinas, what I guess in between the two of them that we saw right there, what's your recommendation, or what?
Right now, a recommendation would be with the one that has the best accuracy down to 1/66th of a gallon, because right now, they didn't mention this in the study that they did, the average of our meter and losses is about 10%. So most of our meters are 10% slow. But on top of that, a new meter, say we put in a new meter with the regular kind, we'll get that 10% back, but we'll get it at the 1/8 or 1/4 gallon starting. So we're still losing that low flow section. And unfortunately, with the new construction standards, most of our houses now, most of our commercial buildings, most of our school buildings all have low-flow toilets, low-flow urinals, low-flow shower heads, and a lot of those things, we're losing a lot of that revenue right there because our meters aren't designed to pick up those flows. So we are looking at either one of this, but our recommendation right now, they'll both work. They'll both do the same job. The only difference is the cost of the meter and the cost for the annual licensing to be able to continue to use the meter, because we are going to have to pay a licensing program for the software that's required so we can take in the data and then transfer it over into our billing software, plus licensing for either the cell-based ones or the radio-based stuff. And that's what that $10,000 there at the bottom of the subscription is for one, $10,000, and the other one, $65,000 in your presentation in that area there. And then, of course, the infrastructure itself, roughly about the same for that's the infrastructure that sends the signals back to our facility so we can get it. That's roughly about $50,000, and we would have to replace them. Now the odds that we're going to replace them is probably slim to almost none. Of course, they are towers. They are going to be sitting on top of our water towers. Of course, in the middle of a heavy storm, hurricane or something like that, they may fail. We don't know that, but they are designed to work within our area because they have to comply with the local windstorm requirements. So they have to meet, at least for our area, I think it's a size 2 hurricane winds because we're a little bit further from the coast. But they will design to meet all the compliance, of course. So, but our recommendation right now, if we're to move with this project, will be with the first one, the cam strap.
Where's the towers? Is this gonna be a wireless connection coming back to city?
Yes, sir. It'll be wireless, yeah. And there is an option to lay, if we would like to lay fiber to it, and we can also have a backbone through a fiber infrastructure. The one that doesn't have that option is the second one, because that's totally off of TGB. It's not a TGB GSM card. It's totally cell-based. That's why the cost is so high at the $65,000, because the average monthly fee for every single one of those meters is about $29, something like that, a month or something. I don't have the exact number, but we would have to pay that monthly fee like regular cell phone for each one of those meters. Yeah.
But you guys won't be responsible for that, for the towers, the maintenance of those transmitters. It'll be a third
Is that
party.
included in the package?
No, it'll have the same warranty periods. It'll be during that warranty period. Now, they won't be responsible for the warranty of the equipment. We'll go through them, but it'll be the manufacturer who's warranting the product. So it'll be Camstrup who will be responsible for the warranty of those items. And then maintenance, if we want required maintenance on it for whatever requirement, that's something that we would have to work out with them or through the manufacturer. But for now, does this include the maintenance component? This fee?
That subscription cost, I believe it does.
Yeah, so I believe that cost includes the maintenance components. We can check that and bring it back before we come back to commission.
On the guarantee, I think one of the things that we want to, since you're asking about warranty and stuff, the big benefit of moving forward with this project is that under this program, Schneider will guarantee, the big plus of this is we're going to guarantee the revenue and the accuracy of those meters. So if there's a shortfall, Schneider is on the hook for that shortfall. So the first year after those meters have been installed, we'll come back and take another sampling of all the meters, or not all the meters, but a sampling of some meters, and send them off to be tested. And of course, if there's any inaccuracy or anything, first option is to come back and try to fix the issue. But if there is a revenue shortfall, then Schneider's on the hook for the next 20 years to pay for that difference.
I understand this. So the OM savings in 20 years, I'm going to be saving 1,620,000, correct? And then the operation and maintenance savings is over 20 years. I'm going to make 1.62 million, right?
Correct.
Okay. And water loss meter revenue captured in 20 years, 6 million, correct?
Yes, sir.
So in 20 years, I'm looking at total benefit for 8 million, and total investment is 4.7 mil. So at what point do I get these 4.7 mil on the savings, and how long will it take for us to pay it and for us to capture that money to pay for that project? 20 years?
So the $4.7 million project cost does not include the cost of money. So
Right.
the cost of money factored into that it's still gonna wind up coming in quite a bit under the $8 million total benefit.
Right.
So the answer to your question, we'd have to prepare a cash flow, but if you're asking what the simple payback is,
Right.
when does it cash flow? I think we have that, but based on that information, I'm gonna say somewhere over 10 years, probably, it looks like probably 15 years, something like that. It's well under 20 years though.
Okay. So, and then, the infrastructure replacement, is that included in the, 4.7?
Infrastructure replacement.
Yeah, on the,
Yeah,
with the
the
50,000?
initial, oh, no, in case you mean if it gets damaged?
Right, actually, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna replace the infrastructures in place now. That's included in the 4.7, correct?
Correct.
Okay, good.
Now, Ryan, can you give them, the next page is just kind of if they were to move forward, let's say in the next month, can you give them a snapshot of what the next step would be, how mobilization, timeframe it would take to do the project?
Sure. So once the project is approved and it's funded, like Aaron said, the next step is to mobilize the construction. And of course, there's a significant material order. When the telemetry equipment, that is the radio equipment, is on site, that gets installed and the communication is verified. So before the water meters start getting changed out on a large scale, that radio equipment is going to be installed and a select few water meters will be replaced in key areas around the city to prove the communication, to prove performance. And once that communication is proven, then we'll see the water meter start to be changed out on a large scale. And we approach that in the same way that the water meters are read. They're read in routes, in books. We want to try to do that, the replacement, in the same way. It's very efficient, door to door that way. It also, we don't want to have we don't want to be working all over the city at one time and create a billing issue, because it's going to stretch over several months. It's not going to happen in one billing cycle. So we'll be very careful that the billing does not get messed up during the construction process. We want to make that as seamless as possible. Right. So yeah, the idea is that it winds up being seamless for the city and for the end user.
All right, any other questions? If not, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
The next item, Mayor Commissioners, it's City Manager reports regarding Denny's Restaurant. As you recall, we had a ribbon cutting about a couple of weeks ago on this. And now it comes to the point where we had a commitment with the 3-year agreement, or it's what is called the incentive agreement between the EDC and the San Juan EDC. Our commitment was that once the EDC was up and running operational, we had a commitment with them for the amount of what would cost to build a parking lot behind the Denny's. So I'm just asking that, I'm saying that it's the check for Bramble's Restaurant is forthcoming, and I'm just putting this on the record that we're gonna be paying those $34,987.95. That is due to Denny's Restaurants, as per the commitment.
Again, Mr. Ohana, this was for what exactly?
$34,987
Was for what?
for the parking lot on the back of the Denny's. Yes,
Oh. 34,000 what?
987 with 95 cents. It's already done, yeah. And the commitment is before the end of the month, this month. Next item on the presentations. Tonight we have Department of Finance, Police Department, Municipal Court, Fire Department, and Department of Utilities. Every director is here. Should you have any questions for them on the monthly departmental reports?
Is there any questions for the directors? You good? You good? You okay? All right, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
The first item on the public hearing ordinances, hold a public hearing for rezoning request from a single-family resident to multifamily residence of lots 1 and 2, Block 3, Pecan State subdivision located approximately 350 feet east of Raul Longoria Road along the north side of Sergeant Leonel Trevino Road, as requested by Jose Zacarias Jr.
Mayor Commissioner, this is located on Raul Longoria and Sergeant Leonel Trevino Road. It's a 2-lot property. It's located east of the O'Reillys. You guys kind of know where that is. It's submitted by Jose Zacarias. They did submit the application. You'll see in the packet. We also did send out the advertisement to the residents within the 200-foot radius. There's also photos of the location as well as a zoning map. Currently, it's single-family residential district, so they want to go to multifamily residential district, which, the city has done that type of zone change. I also did refer to the 2019 comprehensive plan, which that area does show for future use that they can have small townhomes, medium density residential multifamily. So it's possible we just have to do a zone change. This is a public hearing, so if anybody has any comments, the public can do that at this time.
I'm gonna go ahead and open this up at 6:45 PM. Is there anyone here for or against? For or against? Any questions from the members of the commission? I just have one comment. In reference to
Yes.
this item right here, it was a 7-0, right?
It was a what?
Unanimous?
Oh, yes,
On
yes, sir.
planning
The
and
planning and
zoning?
zoning commission, yeah, they did
Okay.
approve it.
Okay, good. Any questions for Mr. Robert? If not, I'll go ahead and close this at 6:45 PM. Is there a motion to approve? Motion. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next,
Thank you, sir.
next item, hold a public hearing for permit to operate a drive-in business in a neighborhood commercial district at the proposed Escuincle San Juan, located 101 South Nebraska Avenue, suite number 5, legally described as lots 1 to 12, block number 3, San Juan Original Townside subdivision, is requested by Alfonso Cantu.
This is also a business at the Rancho Grande Plaza. They're actually, if you go out there, they already have the signage for a snow cone shop. The reason they have to get a conditional use permit is because they're proposing a drive-through, so they'd have to go through the conditional use permit. They did submit the application. We also did send letters to the residents. There's also the zoning map, which is a neighborhood commercial district, which is allowed. The Planning and Zoning Commission, they did approve this, but they wanted to limit that they can't use the alley for an access. So we have to get with the actual business owner to make sure that they don't use that alley because it's not paved, and they saw some issues maybe with if it rains, all the mud. So that's one of the main concerns on that one. But they did approve it with that condition.
Right now in a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. You done?
Yes.
At this time, I'm gonna go ahead and open this up at, 6:47 PM. Is there anyone here for or against? For or against? Any questions, members of the commission? Yes, sir. Huh? Go ahead, sir. You wanna come and state your name for the record, sir?
My name is Edward Rodriguez.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Rodriguez.
Address 1320 South Terrace, San Juan.
Thank you.
I didn't really understand, Mr. Escobar here. Is this for a drive-through permit or for a business permit? 'Cause I understand the business is already operating.
This is for a, go ahead, sir.
They applied for actually the occupation one's still being reviewed, but they just can't open until they actually have the condition use permit, which is why they're applying, because of the drive-through.
Yeah.
So this is actually not a business permit, it's actually a condition use permit.
For the drive-through.
And then once this gets approved, then they would apply for business permit and occupational permits and all that.
So it's not working right now? I thought the business was for you.
Well, they can't use the drive-through, that's what's in question. The condition use is because of the drive-through.
That's what I mean, there's the permits for the drive-through.
Yes, to use the drive-through.
Yes, sir. Okay. Now, in reference, going back to the alleyway, that's the only way they can exit through there.
They had suggested that they might be able to come back and go through first or
I mean,
second.
if there's parking right along the edge of the, on the side, it's gonna be tough.
It would have been better if it would have been paved the alley, but it's not. And he's a renter, so he's not gonna
Spend money and,
spend
yeah, I
that
got
to
you.
do that.
Okay. So, so what is your recommendation, man?
We'd have to kind of see, I don't know if there's a lot of traffic. I know Rancho Grande, there's a lot of people that go to eat there during business hours, but I don't know what their hours are gonna be maybe after.
If they
after
can't,
5.
if they can't come out through the alley, there's going to be an issue there. Yeah.
You'll be blocking.
So, I don't know if you just,
We could work with them on the condition use. We can give them the condition use permit, see how it goes. If there has to make changes, then we can put those additional conditions.
So
You know,
you
because
wanna
we
go
can
ahead
always
and,
revoke this permit.
you wanna table this item?
No, I would, we can actually work with them. I would want to table it. We can approve it, and then we can see how
Okay.
the business is going
All right.
with that condition that,
With the,
Conditions? Yes, is that correct? Okay.
okay. Any other questions?
Sure that on any motion that you, on your motion, you would, make sure to include what the conditions are.
Minutes of the P and Z, their concerns also the congestion there in that area. Even though it was unanimous, the concern is there.
What's the length of the drive-through?
the drive-through.
Little
I'm not sure what the.
I mean, not the whole thing, but just that little, when you make a turn to go out.
They have enough room. It just, the concern would be when it rains. You know, that'd be the only
What I'm
problem.
getting to is, maybe what
Like
we
they
can
can
do.
turn around and come south, or
I don't know, maybe what we can do is maybe get with the owner
Mhm.
and see what we can work something out. Maybe we can pay a little alley.
yeah, and the city uses that alley to pick up trash and stuff like that. So you know, it's an active.
Let us get the, if you don't mind, let us get with the owner and maybe with Mr. Roel Garza. And let's see what we can come up with a proposal. Maybe just a little part where the drive-through is at, which is maybe less than what?
Small
30
section, I
feet,
don't know what
20
the feet
feet,
is.
something like that. And maybe we can work something out with them.
But I mean, everything looked fine and stuff like that. Of course, it's gonna benefit us or the business and stuff like that.
Yeah, we want the
And
business to
so
come in.
we don't wanna, you know, put any blockage to any type of business, but we already have a successful business right there. And, as far as, I mean, I don't see a problem. If we can alleviate the traffic flow and make sure that we don't have any issues with
Right.
that.
And that's what we're doing now with the businesses. If there's an alley that they're gonna use, we'll ask them to either pave it or do some type of improvement. So,
Conditions in, right, like you mentioned. Okay.
With that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and close this at 6:51. Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve on stipulations on the, what the planning and zoning had as far as the commuting back and forth into the establishment and the alley. I believe that we should, we have to sometimes do it with trial and error, you know, I don't think that's public safety an issue, so I believe we should approve. And hoping that if there's anything that needs to be redone or revamped, we can bring it back to the table and look forward.
So that's in the motion? It's been second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
The next item, consideration and approval of an ordinance amending chapter 4, building standard regulations, section 7, permit fees of appendix A, Unified Development Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of San Juan, Texas, to modify certain fees relating to building standards regulations of the City of San Juan. Mr. Juan.
Mayor Commissioners, the reason we brought this item to you guys is Texas House Bill 852. Now it allows for residential permits to not be based on valuation, but based on square footage. So we're actually proposing a 30 cents per square foot for the fees for residential. Commercial will stay based on valuation. Some of the other changes that we're doing are moving homes and demolition from 100 to 200. The plumbing, electrical, mechanical, $35 for those permits. And then also the new service based on amps, we're changing those fees. They're pretty much outdated. And then also the re-inspections, they're $40. So those are some of the changes.
Questions for Mr. Escobar at this time? If not, is there a motion to approve? Go ahead, sir.
And these fees are comparison to other cities?
Yeah, comparable to other cities. Most of the cities are changing the fees to the square footage.
Correct.
I believe Harlingen already changed theirs and a few other cities as well. So
we're in kind of.
and all across the state, they're actually supposed to change their fees.
Okay.
So.
Any other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve? Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The next item, hold second and final public hearing to consider the ordinance adopting the budget for the City of San Juan, Texas for fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2019 and ending September 30th, 2020. Mr. Gonzalez.
Good evening, Mayor, Commission.
Good evening, sir.
This is the second public hearing to consider the ordinance adopting the budget for fiscal year October 1st, 2019 to September 20th. I guess if you have any questions.
Yeah, at this time, I'm gonna go ahead and open this up at 6:54 p.m. Is there anyone here for or against? For or against? Any members of the commission? Have any questions for Mr. Leroy?
If I may.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Gonzalez, I know that on page 2, the last item is the transfer of the purchasing agent from purchasing risk management to the finance department, correct?
Yes.
At 55. And then you have the increase of 38,000 in HR for the transfer at admin clerk from purchasing risk management. What's going to be that title for that individual? It's still purchasing and risk management?
It's
Under a
going,
different department or what?
it's going to just be admin clerk.
Just admin clerk?
Yes.
Okay, so then, okay.
There's two positions. The purchasing is going to finance, and the lady that is currently there working, she'll be going to HR.
As a clerk for that
As a clerk
department, right?
for that
Not to do with risk management or anything.
Well, it'll be, those will be some of the duties, risk management.
Risk management. We're gonna have the risk management, oh, it's just transfer purchasing.
The department is called Purchasing and Risk Management. But her title is admin clerk.
I just wanna make sure that I have it clear because, okay, so then the purchasing agent, which is Mr. Rene Jaime, is gonna go under you.
Yes.
But the clerk is gonna go under HR.
HR, correct.
And doing the same,
Doing,
or some of the same duties?
Some of the same duties, and they're gonna be sharing the risk management duties of them the three people that are currently working there. Or the two people, Brett.
That being said, I'll go ahead and close this at 6:56 PM. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Next item under discussion and possible action, take out discussion and action to accept, approve the 2019 rate study and financial forecast prepared by Walden Financial Services and authorize city manager to execute any related documents. Mr. Salinas.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. You may recall the city engaged Wildan Financial Services to prepare a water and wastewater rate study and long-term financial plan. Back in July, Mr. Dan Jackson from Wildan presented the draft report. He is here today to present the final rate study for your all's either approval or acceptance, either way.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, members of the commission. I appreciate the chance to come back here and talk to you again about this very important rate study and long-term financial plan that we've put together for you. I'm going to go through a very brief presentation just outlining many of the points that I made for you during our previous presentation, but also to outline the importance of looking at a long-term financial plan with regards to water and wastewater utilities, because the development of a long-term financial plan is critical to ensure that you will have a continued superior quality of service here in the city. I'm not going to go through every chart in this presentation because you've seen them, almost all of them before, but I do want to highlight a couple of the most important points I made in my last presentation. And that is that the water industry is changing very rapidly in the 21st century. Costs are going up. They're going up for everybody. The average utility has been increasing its rates 5 to 6% every year, and that trend is expected to continue in the future. Almost all of your neighbors have done some form of rate adjustment in the last several years and will continue to do that in the future. The American Water Works Association anticipates that water rates in general are going to triple in the next 15 years. It is the realization that water, while remaining a precious and diminishing natural resource, is simply going to be more expensive in future years. Why is this? Well, it's due for a lot of reasons that are beyond the control of a utility. You try to run your water operation like a business. Like any business, costs are going to go up in years. They're going to go up whether you adjust your rates or not. And so a prudently run utility has to balance the need to keep rates as low as possible with the need to continue to fund rapidly increasing costs. And also keep this in mind, many utilities don't do that. 30 to 40% of utilities right now charge rates that don't cover their costs. Now that being said, the city of San Juan has a very, very favorable rate structure in place right now. Your rates are basically half the state average. This chart right here is a comparison of how much an average residential ratepayer pays for 10,000 gallons of water and sewer service in the city of San Juan compared to what people pay across the state of Texas. As you can see here in San Juan, an average ratepayer pays $51 for that service, and that's half the state rate of $102. If you compare yourself to many of your other neighbors, as you can see, you're just about the lowest rates in the valley. Your rate at $51, the only city I found that had a lower rate than yours was Edinburgh. Everybody else has a higher rate, and some other cities have rates that are significantly higher than yours. I think the city has done a remarkable job at keeping the burden of water and sewer costs at a minimum to ratepayers here in the city. The problem is you can't expect reasonably to do that forever. Costs are continuing to go up. And so the real challenge a utility like yours has is balancing inevitable cost increases with the desire to keep rates as low as possible. Oh. Okay. Again, why should you consider doing a long-term financial and rate plan and adjusting your rates? Well, one reason is that right now, your revenues are not quite covering all of your costs. And that problem is only going to get worse in the future. This thing isn't working right. Okay. Costs are going to continue to increase by 3 to 5% a year. And right now, your rates aren't covering your costs. So if you don't do a long-term rate plan, that problem is only going to get worse in the future. But most importantly, a water system, like any other system, is based on assets that wear out over time. The city has to invest as much as $58 million in capital improvements over the next decade to maintain your water and sewer system. Once again, that comes up with that very important balancing situation. It's a situation where you want to keep your rates as low as possible, but at the same time, you have to invest in your system to ensure that it continues to operate properly. And so, while it is admirable to want to keep rates low, you also have to ensure that your system is running properly. And if you don't do rate adjustments now, and you're not able to do these long-term capital improvements, it's only going to get worse in the future. It's kind of like saying, I can save $100 by not changing the oil in my car. You could certainly do that. But what that means is that a year from now, your engine is going to blow out, and so the costs of repairing are going to get even more expensive in the future. This is your capital improvement plan. As you can see, $58 million is needed. $39 million in wastewater and $19 million in water. That money's got to come from somewhere. So, what we recommend that you consider is a multi-year rate plan. A plan where you implement a series of gradual annual rate adjustments for each of the next 5 years, ideally on October 1st of each of the next 5 years. The impact for most residential ratepayers will be in the first year a $5 to $8 increase, in the second year a $5 to $8 increase, and in years 3 through 5 a $1 to $3 increase. So while it does mean that ratepayers will pay more, the idea of phasing it in gradually over the next 5 years will not only give you the money you need to run your system, but it will also enable you to start issuing the debt necessary to do that $58 million in capital plans. And if you do this, your rates will continue to remain at or below or among the lowest in the Rio Grande Valley. This is the rate plan itself. I'm obviously not going to go through all the numbers, but it does show you increasing your minimum charge each year and increasing your volumetric rate each year for the next 5 years. The same thing is true on the wastewater side. We would recommend a series of gradual increases in your minimum charge and in your volumetric rate to ensure that you cover your costs. And this right here is probably the most important chart in the entire presentation because it does show what the impact will be on your average family. Your average residential customer uses about 6,000 gallons a month. So, at a 5,000 gallon range, right now they pay $35.60 for 5,000 gallons of water and sewer service. Under this plan, it would go to $42 or an increase of $7 a month. The next year, it will go up about another $6 to $48. And then in years 3 through 5, it will go up anywhere from $2 to $4 a month each year. If you use a little bit more, 7,000 gallons, the rate increase would be a little higher. If you lose a little bit less, the rate increase will be a little bit lower. But a person who pays $35 today would pay about $56 5 years from now. Commercial customers would pay a little bit more because they obviously use more water. Your average commercial customer uses about 30,000 gallons a month. They pay about $166 a month for that. Their average bill would go up by about $35 under this plan. So, why do it? I know it's never easy to ask ratepayers to pay more. It's never easy to ask anybody to pay more for anything at any time for any reason. So, while you are asking your ratepayers to contribute more, this will benefit your system and your city significantly in the next several years. Now, you might ask the very obvious question, how could asking ratepayers to pay more possibly be beneficial? Well, one way it'll benefit you is it will enable your utility to continue to operate on a standalone basis and to be independent of general fund assistance. If you don't do these rate adjustments, you're going to need your general fund to support your utility fund in the next several years. Every dollar from the general fund that goes to support the utility fund is a dollar that you don't have for other critical city services. So if you do this rate plan, you won't need to do that. Secondly, it will result in a financially healthy utility. You want the utility that you pass on to future generations to be as healthy as the one you inherited. And that means that you have to have a utility that covers all of its costs. This rate plan will enable you to do so. Thirdly, and this is very important, all you're asking your ratepayers to do is pay what it's costing you to provide that service. Without this rate plan, you're essentially subsidizing your ratepayers. And the problem with any business is that if you sell your product at below its cost, you're going to end up in financial difficulty. And right now, you're selling your product at below its cost. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, implementing this rate plan will enable you to invest $58 million in the future of the city of San Juan. These are assets that will directly benefit you, your ratepayers, children, and maybe even their grandchildren as well. Because the assets that you build with the money that you get from this rate plan will still be in use 40, 50 years from now. And so, one of the benefits of a water utility is that the money that you collect is money that generally goes right back into the city. Goes right back into the streets, alleyways, and infrastructure of the city of San Juan. So while it's never easy to ask people to pay more, what you're really asking them to do is invest in the future of the city. As your rate consultant, I recommend that you adopt this long-term rate plan. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have at this time. Thank you very much.
It is an action item, sir, so I will need some kind of an action, either to approve or accept the plan. You don't have to adopt it, but we do need to accept it so I can pay the financial advisor who did the study.
This is to adopt a report, right? A study that they made. The study. This is not about increasing rates or anything like that, just a report.
Correct.
So just to approve the rate study. In fact, that could be the motion to approve the rate study.
The motion on the table?
Motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Villegas. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Ramirez. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Next one, sir.
Thank you.
The next item, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, discussion and action to authorize staff to renew the memorandum of agreement by and between City of San Juan Research, Applied Technology, Education and Service, Inc., DBA Rates RGV for representative appointment for the Regional Lower Grande Valley TPDES, the Stormwater Task Force, the MOA RGV TF 2019-00020, and authorize the mayor to execute all related documents and budget amendment as needed. Mr. Salinas.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Commission, again. This is our memorandum of understanding for, not understanding, but our MO of agreement to continue to be partners with the Stormwater Task Force. The city has been a partner with the Stormwater Task Force for several years now, basically since inception. The task force has moved from Kingsville to UTRGV and now to Rates nonprofit. If you all remember last year, we approved the transfer over to the nonprofit. Today, this is to approve the continued membership We did have legal review the plan. We made some comments. We made some modifications to the plan to where legal was agreeable with. And right now, staff's recommending that we approve the plan as presented and appoint Mr. Garza as the new member representative for the city on that task force.
On a comment real quick on that, David, I didn't see the commitment of current revenues because it's a 5-year agreement.
It's a 5-year commitment, but it has to be approved annually. So it will have to come back to the commission for approval because it's based on whether we have funds to do it or not. Yeah.
And there is a, just to let you know, Commission, there is a termination clause that's in there that it can be terminated at any time and for any reason with a 30-day notice, so.
Correct. And Dr. Andrew Nelson, Ernest from rates is here. If you have any questions on the actual plan. Thank you.
Do we have a motion? Motion been made by Mr. Ramirez, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Villegas, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carried.
Next item, consider authorizing city manager to declare 1 backhoe, 6 vertical turbine pumps and motors, 1989 Vector truck, and a Ford F-150 as a surplus, and authorize purchasing division to auction the items.
There is a correction in the item. It's an F-250, not an F-150. That was a typo on my side. Yeah. It is listed correctly in the list of items that's attached.
It's an F-250.
Yeah, it is an F-250. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the 250 is on there. Any questions? No, all in, is there a motion? Motion made by Mr. Ramirez, a second? Second by Mr. Villegas, all in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried.
The next item, consider entering into memorandum of understanding between the city of San Juan and the Texas A&M Engineering Extension Services, TEEX. Chief?
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, good evening. This is our yearly renewal for our MOU that we have with TEEX for our training for staff and for the volunteers. We submit to them on a monthly basis, and they keep it in their portal. At the end of the year, or the end of the month, when we finish all our courses, they print out a certificate and everything, more official than anything else, instead of just logging down the hours. We did it last year, it worked for us, and we want to continue, so, except we got to renew it every year. So this is for next year.
For training, correct?
Correct, yes, sir.
Or do our volunteers, this is for our volunteers or overall?
No, it's for staff and volunteers, both.
Any questions from Mr. Garza? Is there a motion? Motion been made by Mr. Ramirez, second? Second by Mr. Villegas, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, discussion and action to authorize the mayor to execute a budget amendment out of retained earnings to ratify additional work needed for the emergency repair at the wastewater plant. Ms. Salinas? That's your item.
That was the next one. Apologize for that, Mayor Pro Tem. If you recall, last year during the rain event, we had a sinkhole at the wastewater plant. You all approved an emergency repair amendment. When the contractor started the work, there were other items that were found during the work which required additional funding as to not hold up the project. I did meet with Mr. Arjona. We discussed the cost, and this is a budget amendment to ratify that cost so I can pay the contractor. The work has been completed per the items. The only thing that we're still pending is the electrical, but unfortunately, because of the additional costs, we didn't have enough funding to address the electrical. So that's something we're going to look at in next year's budget. The original was, this is an amendment out of the retained earnings. So it'll be coming out of the retained earnings. Yeah.
What was the original?
The original for the repair was $97,500, but once they started digging, apparently, well, not apparently, back in like 07, 08, there was an original collapse on a manhole, and the company who was hired back then to do the repairs didn't do a very good job. They left some items in the ground that were still receiving flow, and that's what's corroded. So that was all additional work that wasn't included as part of the original scope of the project, because it was assumed that all that had been eliminated. But when they started digging up the area, they found that they left the original pipe still connected with a hole in it, so water had been escaping through there. They left the original manhole that had collapsed, they just put a concrete cap on top of it, and they just buried it. And then where they did do the plug, they just poured concrete into it, and they didn't verify that it was completely sealed, so flow is still getting through. And when they went and bypassed the station, they were still getting flow into the station that was coming through that original line. So that, all that had to be corrected and done the proper way so it wouldn't happen again. So that's the additional cost.
Questions? None? Do you have a motion? Motion made by Mr. Ramirez, second. Second by Mr. Villegas. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
The next item, discussion and action terminating court attorney fees for professional services provided in collection fines and fees. Mr. Enriquez, as you're well aware, there's the program that is at the municipal court, which is the scofflaw. And this program, as you recall, when it first started, there was a lot of collections. And gradually it's gonna go lower and lower and lower. But that means that the people that have the outstanding tickets are coming back and paying once they need to go out and renew their licenses or their license plates. So having said that, the scofflaw is working in the sense that we no longer need those attorney fees because of the fact that if you want to renew it, you have to come in through the program and renew that. So some of those outstanding tickets are minimizing to the point that it's really not necessarily needed. So they're making a recommendation to cease with these services and just continue with the scofflaw.
A question, on the services on the scofflaw, do we pay a service fee per year, or how does that work?
It's $20.
We're just not getting,
I'm sorry?
we're not getting the substantial amount anyways, right, is what you're saying?
With the
Because
scofflaw?
people are paying it themselves.
Right. Well, actually, we have to pay the attorneys, but the scofflaw, there's a fee of $20 a ticket. It doesn't come from us, it comes from the person that pays the ticket, the citation. Yes.
Right, but there is a fee that we're actually paying for the scofflaw.
Do we
to
pay
be-
a maintenance fee?
Mhm. So there's no annual fee, so we're taking it out for what reason?
No, we're not
Or the
taking.
recommendation, I'm sorry, recommendation.
The recommendation is to see with the professional services, which is the court attorney fees.
Oh, got you, yes.
They're the
not
ones
the
that
scofflaw.
do, yeah,
Oh,
they
oh,
do
collections.
collections.
Right.
They help the city
That's
collect.
We
Yeah.
don't need that. I got it.
To terminate the
Okay.
professional services.
Any other questions?
But keep it scofflaw.
Got you. Any questions? Is there a motion on the table? Motion been made by Mr. Ramirez, second. Second by Mr. Villegas. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carried.
The next item, discussion and possible action regarding Hidalgo County Elections Department, request for early voting election day polling location, fire station number 2 on 2301 North Raul Longoria, San Juan, Texas, 78589, for the primary runoff, and general elections. Ms. Tina?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. In the agenda packet is a letter we received from the Hidalgo County Elections Department for the request of using the facility of Fire Station Number 2, the meeting room right next to it. This year, they're requesting it for the primary runoff, and general elections. The constitutional amendment and local election is scheduled for November 5th as the election day, with the early voting dates of October 21st through November 1st. You can see the dates and the hours in your packet. And then they, of course, have the tentative dates for the primary, which would be in March 3rd, 2020, the general election, November 3rd, 2020, and the primary runoff, May 26th, 2020.
Questions? None. Is there a motion? Motion by Mr. Ramirez, second. Second by Mr. Villegas. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
And under consent agenda, we have items A through H. Notice that you can pull any item if you'd like to discuss further, or just go through them. It's the consent items.
Anything on the consent agenda? Ramirez?
No.
Is there no questions? Is there a motion to table? We have to motion, right? Oh. Motion, do we have a motion to approve?
And that's the motion to approve A through H?
A through H. A through H, correction. There's a motion to approve A through H by Mr. Ramirez. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Villegas. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. carries.
Under executive session, the San Juan City Commission will convene executive session according with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Furnace, Texas statutes, and codes annotated, Government Code, Chapter 551. Item number 1, pursuant to Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, discussion, possible action regarding legal concerning longevity pay for non-civil service employees.
Is there a motion to go to executive session? Motion been made by Mr. Ramirez. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Villegas. All in favor say aye. Aye. We're going to take executive session at 7:18. $7:57. So moved. There motion's been made by Mr. Ramirez. Is there any second? Second by Mr. Villegas. All in favor say aye. Aye. At this time, for the executive session, what number is it, sir? I totally lost my position here.
Last page.
The last page? Item number 1, there's gonna be no action at this time. Next item is gonna be adjournment. Do I have a motion? Motion been made. Second? Second. Second by Mr. Villegas. All in favor say aye. Aye. This meeting has adjourned at 7:58.